We're joined in studio now by the Fianna Fáil leader, Micheál Martin. Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for being here. Are you proud of your stamp on this housing budget?
I wouldn't use the word proud. I think this budget is just but one of a series of measures that have to be taken to end the misery of homelessness and people in emergency accommodation, to try and get a significant shift in policy where the state becomes involved in providing affordable housing as well as social housing, because we know house prices are too high for people who are working. We know that the rents are too high for young people who get jobs in cities and who simply can't make ends meet at the end of the week. So we do believe that this budget does mark a significant shift in the affordable housing side of the story. A lot more needs to be done. And I think if you look at a section of the Minister's speech, therein lies the problem, I think, where he says that by the end of 2018, over 70,000 housing solutions, he calls them, will have been delivered. But of those, just under 12,000 will have been delivered through building. And that was last year. 5,000 through acquisitions and 3,000 through leasing, 50,000 through HAP, the Housing Assistance Programme, which really is, in my view, symptomatic of why we're at a situation where people can't get houses.
Okay.
Enough houses are not being built. The state has to get involved and build more. This budget, both from council housing and state housing and affordable housing, I think represents a significant shift in that direction.
And primarily at the moment, there's a homelessness crisis because there aren't enough affordable homes to rent. What have you achieved for tenants in your housing budget? Well,
one area that we want, which hasn't yet been resolved, and which Barry Cowan referenced in his speech and which was part of the negotiations, was to try and get security of tenure for tenants through the taxation system, taxation relief. In other words, that if a landlord was prepared to allow a tenant there for a prolonged period of time, in terms of the taxation system, there would be benefits.
Why didn't you secure that before yesterday?
There are some legal issues around it that the Minister indicated to Barry Cowan, but both have agreed, and we've agreed that in the context of the finance bill, we'll try and get that resolved so that measure there to give security of tenure so that we don't have a series of evictions.
So what does that mean? Will that mean in law landlords will not be able to evict their tenants if they're selling the premises from beneath their flats?
What it would mean is that agreements would be entered into whereby security of tenure would be given to tenants, and in return there would be a more favourable tax situation for landlords.
More favourable in addition to the 100% loan interest
This is about enlightened self-interest, that we get people to, because what's going on at the moment, we know it, they're coming into our clinics. Landlords are saying we're going to refurbish our house, or they're going to sell their houses, and people are being evicted. We've got to stop that.
But you're now incentivising landlords to renovate their homes because this loan interest relief is also on renovation and improvements.
Well, we want to incentivise the security of tenure. People to be long, and we also want to bring more supply into the market. There has been some evidence over recent years that people have actually left the market, particularly those with maybe two houses or small time people who are letting out houses. There's a desperate need to get more units into the market in the immediate sense. Obviously, the ultimate way is to build more.
But because
I don't think the country has built enough social housing.
But because you have secured 100% tax relief for landlords, which is something that you insisted on having in this budget, these landlords are now going to be competing with the very people who are going to be trying to buy under the affordable housing scheme.
No, you see, the issue here is in terms of the affordable housing scheme. I mean, that is specifically for families and young people who want to buy a house.
Can you specify that it's families and young people rather than everyone?
Yes, of course we can engage in and that's what the whole purpose of the affordable housing scheme is. I mean, we need more housing in the market, as simple as that. And the problem we have seen, and this is what we need more drilling down here, like why did the rapid housing programme, which was meant to give us over 1,800 houses 2 years ago, only developed 200? Why has LIHAF been so slow? Why has the special development zone in Poolbeg failed to deliver when we were promised 2 years ago 3,000 houses? There's a fundamental problem of delivery here as well. And so, for example, in the budget talks we said to government, for God's sake, why don't you let local authorities simply build the schemes themselves and not have to submit the schemes to the department where they can sit for 9 months before they get sanctioned? There are very practical things we can do to remove bureaucratic logjams.
Back to the security of tenure, which you say you are working on to achieve through the Finance Act, which is coming up in December. If you don't get that, will you back this budget?
Well, sorry, we're committed to getting the Finance Act done. We're committed to working through
this. But if you don't get that
we're not getting into deadlines and red lines.
Why not?
Because I haven't got into them up to now, and I think it's been far more constructive and engaging and professional. We honour our words. We're not into sort of...
No, but it's easy for you to sit here this morning and say, we are working on a measure to ensure security of tenure. If you don't get it,
But sorry,
what will you do?
We have already, in terms of this budget, ensured across the board, from homelessness to social housing, building more state housing, to affordable housing, where 6,000 will be built now over the next 3 years, to getting more supply through the rental system.
But there's nothing in this budget that will prevent one family from being evicted who are renting.
Well, I think,
not one.
Well, sorry, I disagree. I think there's two issues when there's evictions coming up. One, that there's an alternative supply, and that's vital, either through house building or through rental. And in addition to that, I think that in the context of the finance bill, we're going to follow through on that. And I think I would be confident we'll get that through. But I just don't do red lines. If that's the case, we'd never have constructive negotiations or engagement. And I think, over the last 3 years, we've been honourable in the conduct of our business as an opposition party. We've acted in the best interest of the people. We haven't sat on the sidelines. We're not in government, so it's a difficult position to be in a confidence and supply arrangement. But nonetheless, we're going to work on behalf of people, particularly on the big issues of housing and of health and special needs children who are waiting too long for assessments. And again, we've put pressure on the government to step up its performance in that regard.
I want to move on and talk about, you're facilitating the government in the confidence and supply agreement. It's due for review and possible extension now that the budget is done and dusted. And Leo Varadkar, the Taoiseach, spoke last night on the 9 o'clock news, and he described the next steps that he believed were needed following a call with you yesterday evening.
Micheál talks in terms of a review of the constant supply agreement and talks around a timeline running up to Christmas. I'm happy to do a review, but what I'd actually like to do is what I set out back in August, which is for us to agree a new programme and for the government to continue until the summer of 2020. But I think if we engage and engage seriously, we can get this done by the Halloween break, or certainly the end of the Halloween recess period, and I think that should be our target.
So when will the talks begin, and are they going to be a review, or are you going to talk about extending the current agreement?
Well, the first point is, I did speak to the Taoiseach yesterday, I rang him yesterday. We both agreed there would be no preconditions. So I'm not setting preconditions here and will not engage in that sort of situation. So basically, we committed to starting talks. Our officials will engage to create the framework. There will have to be a review, and a detailed review, because I mentioned earlier, in terms of housing, for example, the absence of delivery. It's the biggest crisis facing the country.
So a review means going through line by line before you even talk about whether you're going to go ahead until summer 2020 like he wants.
The agreement says a review. A review is about understanding why certain things happened and why other things didn't happen. And in terms of housing and health, there are big questions. And it's interesting what the Taoiseach says, it's not about it's not about the Taoiseach alone. The current Dáil was formed as a result of the last general election. The Fine Gael party lost many, many seats. They don't get to command and control what happens in the dynamic of Dáil Éireann. Neither do I. This is about engagement. It's about constructive engagement.
If he gets fed up waiting, he could call an election in November or December.
Well, that's the matter for the Taoiseach. I can't, if the Taoiseach wants a general election, he should come out and say he wants a general election. From my perspective, I think we've engaged in the budget, for example. I said this in March, we wanted to honour the budget and we wanted to enter into review. I think people should take our bona fides on board here. We didn't engage in any, there was a motion of no confidence in Owen Murphy. We didn't engage in that. We said we wanted to get involved and knuckle down into the budget to get things for people out there who are waiting for houses. The health issue is another one where there has to be this is important, has to be a review, because it was very late in the night before we got the figures on health. Over 750 supplementary. We want to meet the HSE. We want to engage with them in terms of drilling down and looking at where Sláinte Care really stands now in terms of implementation over the next while, because there are really serious question marks around the health area and the funding of health into the future.
We must leave it there for now, but thank you for coming in to us this morning, Fianna Fáil leader Micheál Martin.